All right, CDPs, thank you so very much for joining me. Happy New Year. It is January 29th. I think technically I'm still allowed to say Happy New Year for a couple more days at least. This is the first of what I hope will be many ways that we interact with our members throughout 2025. I'm glad that you're on board today. One of the things I'm noticing about Zoom is that you'll have 110 people registered, but about, if you're lucky, 40 will show up. So it's becoming more and more of something that people are listening to later on, as opposed to something that they are participating in live. So I don't know, maybe that's something I should consider, is maybe going away from this format and just doing a recorded format and just sending it out to the membership. I always thought that this was better because you have a way of interacting, especially today with our special guest being a professional negotiator. It's a fantastic opportunity to ask questions, but we're just seeing the participation levels as a whole going down. But let me go ahead and do this. I have a few slides to share, and then I'm going to go ahead and introduce our special guest. I was asking her separately, hey, are you there? Are you going to join us? She goes, yes, I've been waiting for a call from HUD, a return call. So she's working as she's doing this, but she will be on board. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. And by the way, I am recording this and I will send it out to everyone that registered and probably the entire membership once we are done this afternoon or sometime tomorrow. Would you agree with this slide? Would you go ahead and give me a thumbs up in the chat area that 2024 was interesting? And that's one way to put it out. So I think that the numbers have come out, and we're just a little over 4 million units that were sold. I have the exact amount someplace else, but a little over 4 million units sold, which is horrible. And it's the worst numbers we've seen since 1995. And then you see a stat like this: 71% of real estate agents didn't close a single deal last year. That is startling. And as a team leader myself of about 148 agents, this is not far from the truth. This is the very real reality of what our market is bringing us, or has brought us to this point. And I think the number of folks that closed from 2 to 5 deals, it's not significant at all. So we're in a crisis situation right now. We're all hoping and praying that 2025 is going to get a little bit better, but it may not be. So what do we do in that situation? Well, we embrace the chaos, because in chaos there is also opportunity. One of the things I also saw that the double hit this past year was when NAR's new rules and requirements went into effect on August 17th of the buyer broker agreements and all these things in compensation. That threw a lot of agents for a loop. A lot of agents were, I don't know if they were hoping and praying it wasn't ever going to be instituted, but they were caught off guard. And I have heard and witnessed quite a few agents actually exiting the business because they feel like, you know what? I was considering leaving anyway. I was considering retiring, and I'm just going to accelerate it based on all of these new rules and all these new forms and everything else. I get it. It's difficult. It's more challenging, but it also creates an opportunity, because how I look at it. It's sad that a lot of agents are leaving the business, and they are leaving the business by the tens of thousands. But at the same time, it creates more opportunities for the folks that are in it to win it, are committed, are treating it as a business. They don't look at real estate as a hobby. They're in to create transactions on an ongoing basis, not on an occasional basis. So let's take a look at something that maybe you agree with, maybe you don't. I'm hoping you do. That being a listing agent now is more important than ever before. How many of you can go ahead and give me a thumbs up on that? And this shouldn't be earth-shattering news. I mean, this is something we learned in real estate school. They taught us listings are the name of the game. But we know that there's what we hope, and then there's reality. We know a lot of agents step out into the market ill-prepared. They go up against many top producing or more experienced agents and listing presentations, and they simply get beat out. And what happens is they kind of say, okay, well, you know what? I'm just going to focus on buyers because buyers are easy. Oh, then these new regulations come into play, and now we have to get buyers to sign a buyer broker agreement. We have to convince buyers that we're worth getting paid, being compensated in the event that the seller is not willing to compensate us. So it's a little bit more challenging out there. This is something that I learned from another speaker, and I have borrowed it because I think it's so, so true. Our job is not to motivate sellers to sell or buyers to buy. You know, right now, we all know of all the sellers that are sitting on the fence, not putting their properties up for sale because they're sitting on a 2.5, 2, 3% interest rate. And yeah, they want to buy something else, but they don't want a 6.5 or 7% interest. So they're sitting on this, right? And you hear some speakers are out there say, well, here's what you tell them in those situations. And I'm, you know, not to be negative, but I'm just the kind of person that says, wait a minute, you know, what are you going to tell someone in that situation that's really, really going to get them to go, you know, you're right. I never thought of it that way. Let me just walk away from this amazing interest rate I have right now and take on this incredible debt. I don't think that that's where we should be applying our efforts. So our job is not to motivate them to sell or the buyers to buy, but is to identify the ones that are motivated. So if listings are the name of the game, why not, instead of chasing and trying to convince people that they should put their homes up for sale during these chaotic times, why don't we just identify the ones that have no choice but to sell? And I think that brings us right to the heart of what we're talking about today, pre-foreclosures. And I'm really into niche marketing now. I'm really into specialization. I believe that the industry is overloaded with general practitioners. And what we need now are more specialists. And more agents are listening. And that's why I'm a proponent of picking a niche or two. I'm an advocate for working probate, working with investors. Think about the people that have no choice but to sell, folks that are getting separated or getting divorced, people that are being relocated, and people that are losing their homes. If this is something that you really haven't applied serious effort into in the past, maybe it's time to start doing that now. And let's do it with the niche that we all believe in and love and believe that there's a tremendous need for. And these are the folks that are losing their home in foreclosure. A couple of quick announcements, because it's not often I get a chance to get you guys' attention like this, but we made a pretty big change in our marketing plan last year. We were offering the campaigns, the monthly marketing campaigns at $119 per month. And the marketing campaigns are amazing. It's several hundred, if not thousands of dollars worth of marketing materials that's being handed to you right there for you to personalize every month. And what we found is that the agents were getting overwhelmed. They didn't get the one campaign out, then they got another campaign and then another campaign. And before you know it, they're going, look, I just want to cancel because I can't get caught up. So we just made an executive decision. Let's go ahead and eliminate the subscription service and make it a la carte. Let's make it so that the agents can look at our entire library of different marketing campaigns and pick one or two that you can download immediately and then go to work. And we brought the price down to only $49 per campaign for the first 100 purchases. And when you look at the screen at everything that's included, this is soup to nuts. This is you just having to go on Canva, adding your photo, having your contact information, and you're ready to go. But we have the scripts. We have the scripts for video. We have the scripts for everything from social media to press releases. So if you haven't looked into this, I highly encourage you to visit the website that Jeanette will go ahead and share the link to. Don't go look at it now, look at it later, and then take a look at all the cool campaigns that we have to offer you, and then do something. And then at the end of the day, it's about doing something. Now, every now and then I offer a special price on either the online on demand or my favorite, the Zoom version of me teaching the CDPE as a special, at a special price for current members. You know, we sell the course every day for $4.99. Individual members of the CDP have always been able to take it for $250 as a refresher, but I've dropped it down to $149 because I know there's a lot of folks out there that are rusty. Maybe you were a CDP and you took the course from me or Alex or one of the other speakers, and you took it 14 years ago. Folks, I think it's time for you to take it again. And I've brought the price down so that it's affordable. And because of this format, it's a live Zoom format. So it's me teaching it personally, and then you could ask your questions and so on and so forth. It's coming up on the 25th and 26th of February. So it's coming up right around the corner, only $149. Jeanette will go ahead and share the link to that, but let me just give you a quick warning. That special price is only for active, or I should say, current CDPEs. If your membership expired or you never renewed your membership once I bought the designation, then we're going to go ahead and say, hold on a second, folks. We're going to need you to take care of that first before we can extend this special offer to you. So make sure that you are a CDPE in good standing first. And then, or if you're not sure, ask Jeanette, and then we can go ahead and make this offer available to you. Do not share this with other agents in your office unless, of course, they are CDPs themselves. All right, that brings us to our special guest today. And I've known this young lady for a while now. I think she's amazing. I have to chase her down every so often and say, I need you to go ahead and talk to my members. And I do beg, I'm not too proud to beg. I'll go ahead and say, Ofelia, I know you're busy, but please, we need your insights. And she's a capitalist like me. She also knows that when she has an opportunity to share how much she knows, it definitely creates a situation where people go, well, maybe that's the person that should be negotiating my short sales. And just to go ahead and preface this, you know that in the old days, if you're an OG, part of the original gangster squad, back in the day, we taught you to negotiate your own short sales because we had to. Nobody knew what they were doing back then. But even way before I decided to acquire and bring back the CDP, I stopped teaching that. I absolutely do not believe that agents should be negotiating their own short sales. I think it is a huge waste of time. It's a huge liability. It is not the best use of your time. And right now, you have people that do this for a living, that have contacts and insights that there's no way that you can reacquire in any short period of time. So given all this, I think you ought to work with a professional negotiator. Now, there's quite a few out there. Some of them are CDPE members. You see, sometimes they'll advertise their services in our private Facebook group. And by all means, I always encourage you to interview more than one. You need to go ahead and get different perspectives. Maybe the title company or the attorney that you work with on a consistent basis does this. But this is a rare opportunity to actually listen and see what this person does every day. And this might give you more insight as to what questions to ask someone else. Or you know what, by the time you're done listening to her, you're going to go, this is the one I want to work with. And then she's going to give you her contact information and you can go ahead and take it from there. Ofelia, how are you, my dear?
Fine, fine. Thank you. I'm sorry I was late. I got a return call from HUD after 5 days and I needed to take the call. And then I ran into technical difficulties because I hadn't used Zoom since I got a new phone and I had to download it and blah, 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 blah.
No, you were perfect. That's why I always kind of take up a little time. I'm kind of like the opening act at the beginning just to buy some time and everything else. But we got a good group here. We are up to about 47 that are here right now. But the reality is by the time we send the recording out, this will get hundreds, if not thousands of views. So you're going to be famous, even more famous than you are right now.
I don't know if I want to be that famous.
Or infamous, whatever. So
Infamous
just a
sounds
quick
better.
introduction. Tell people a little bit about yourself. How did you get to the point that this is what you do for a living?
Okay. First and foremost, I've been in the mortgage industry. I just turned 67 yesterday. I started in the mortgage industry when I was 17 years old. I have done all facets of the industry. The last job that I held was a mortgage underwriter, both FHA, conventional, uh, portfolio, jumbo loans. I took a break. I took a break from being an underwriter. There was under a lot of pressure right before the market crashed. And I went ahead and I started working for an attorney, a real estate attorney, helping her with modifications. That was about 10 years ago. It was actually 10 years ago. And then that developed into the modifications that didn't pan out thank you to becoming short sales. And then I decided like around 8 years ago, or maybe more, I don't remember. I have lost time in my old age that I went on my own, and I'm an independent short sale negotiator. As you can see, my fan, I work from home. This is the only thing that I do. I consider myself pretty successful. When I tell Tony this, I know he's gonna flip. What day is it today?
I think it's Wednesday, the
No,
29th.
date. Okay, yeah. Since the beginning of the year, I have gotten 10 short sales approved.
Wow.
And I currently have 19 or 17 in process.
Wow. Okay, folks. So
As a matter of fact, I was talking to the attorney yesterday that because she called me for my birthday. She couldn't believe it. She goes, "Where do you get them from?" And I said, "They're coming out of the woodworks."
yeah, yeah, and I'm sure there are quite a few CDPEs because I know that, ever since I acquired it, it's been 3 years now. You've been at the top of the list of folks that I recommend. So I know that there's quite a few CDPs that reach out to you. And it's going to get even busier because, maybe my timing was off. I really thought that what would hit the fan sooner. And you know what? For various reasons, it didn't. And I'm hoping and praying it's never going to be as bad as 2008. I've never said it would be, but foreclosures never went away. The biggest difference is that initially we found that most of the people that were in foreclosure had equity. So that did away with the whole notion of you needed to know how to do a short sale. But now we're finding that a lot of folks are in a negative position for a variety of
But
reasons.
let me explain to you something too. I venture to say that 80, and I'm going to say 80% of the short sales that I currently have and that are approved, maybe 70, are all reverse HECM mortgages.
Okay. So here's the deal. I'm glad you touched that. And we don't really have an itinerary to folks today. We're going to bounce around. I've cornered her for an hour and a half. We have and we're just going to ask different questions as she's going. Are you going to keep me that long? Yes. Yeah. I'm going to apologize in advance right now, but yes. But one of the things that we talked about, and I don't think we need to get into it in a lot of specificity today, because I cornered you a few months ago and we did a whole session like this about the opportunities around reverse mortgage short sales. So what I'm going to encourage everyone to do as a CDPE is to log into your resources area, go into the area, the link that discusses and shares past coaching Zooms, and you have that entire topic is there. So I want to use her time for other things, but I'm glad you mentioned it because I was planning on bringing it up. And that's just going to give them motivation to go catch that recording.
And it's really easy. They just have to and I don't know what methods they use, what systems they use to farm their short sales or to farm their listings, but there's a way. I know there's a way. There's different programs that are set up that you can actually just tune in, synchronize to reverse mortgages. And the biggest thing on a reverse mortgage that I've seen my clients do is zoom into probate. 95% of the probate cases that they on the systems and the platforms that they use are reverse mortgages.
Yeah, so it's almost like we're totally in sync. So this past week, I attended for the second or third time a course called a Certified Probate Specialist. My good friend Buddy West is the author. He and G. Dunstan are the authors of this course, and they're teaching it all over the country at a lot of association of realtors. And they were here in South Florida. And I'm very proud to say that Buddy has approved me to also teach his course going forward. I'll be teaching it in English and in Espanol. And the dovetail is incredible. Probate and pre-foreclosures go together like a hand in the glove.
Like a
And
hand in
so,
glove. No, no.
yeah,
And let me
so
tell you that I've
mhm,
learned a lot about probates. Most of my clients generally work with two specific probate attorneys. And I have learned so much from both of them, especially
yeah,
one of them, that it's incredible. It's incredible. And like I don't get involved in the probate because I can't. I'm not an attorney
right.
and I don't want to get involved.
Yeah,
But I know what I need and I know which probate I want done. Because there's, I can't risk, and this especially happens in Broward County or other counties, not so much in Dade, where they make you wait 90 days to make sure that there's no creditors or And that is such an easy fix as long as they don't have assets that exceed $50,000 or $75,000. I don't remember. You
Mhm.
can do the short way and you have it. I've gotten probates done in 3 weeks.
Yeah. Well, listen, this is all, I mean, we're feeding you ideas, folks. And when it's all said and done, if you don't know enough about probate, and there's several courses out there, get engaged. When I send out the information this evening or tomorrow morning, I'll include a link to Buddy's class. Unfortunately, he's only teaching it live and in person right now. I keep asking him, man, when's your online on demand going to come out? But I was there to witness the class and learn how to teach it, and the agents are just amazed at the opportunity and everything else. One of the things I want to talk to you about, and I don't want to mention any names. I don't want to mention any names, but there's been some scandal and some issues in our industry, and I don't want to do this in any kind of salacious way or in any kind of way trying to make it, glamorous or news, but it involved a real estate agent that was indicted with federal charges regarding fraud in short sales. And when this came up, it kind of rocked us a little bit because it's like, my goodness, what was this person allegedly doing? And have other people been taught to do the same thing? I would like to get your perspective. Again, no names. I'm not even talking geographic area where this agent is at. You have heard a few things about this. What has this person, or what did this person allegedly do?
Well, I'll be honest with you. Funny story. One of the persons that was indicted with this person reached out to me, and she was asking if I was interested in her services, and that she could refer me clients, that she could refer me deals. And I immediately told her, "Look, I'm sorry. I'm not interested in working with you or associating myself with you because I understand that you were indicted." And then she went on to try to justify herself and explain herself. And she explained to me on via email that she left right before this happened, but she was part of it during the era that they're being investigated. But I did a lot of research because I have a lot of clients, and I have clients that have used the services of that individual. And to be quite honest with you, because I kept saying she falsified documents. What documents did she falsify? She presented fraud contracts. Well, and I'm thinking the proof of funds weren't accurate. And I'm like, so far I haven't seen anything. But basically, what she did was she made up contracts.
Yeah.
She actually made up the contracts and signed them for buyers that were not aware that they were buying the property. Then she falsified proof of funds and sent proof of funds for these sellers, for these buyers that didn't exist and had no idea. She had a group of investors
Yeah.
that she worked with. And so, excuse me. So basically, she was using these methods to postpone foreclosure sale dates. And she really didn't have a buyer. She was just trying to get the deal done where she would benefit both. And then she would come in with one of her companies and
Yeah.
buy the property.
Yeah. It was my understanding, and again, all of this, allegedly,
Oh, correct.
yeah, she was using the names of actual buyers, investors. So they weren't like fictional individuals. These were
No,
real
they were
people.
actual, but they
Yeah,
were not.
but they were not involved. They didn't approve or say, I want to buy
I
this
want
50.
that. No,
Yeah.
she was just using. I guess she had a storage of people, or I can't even think of the word right now. She had people that she worked with, and
Yeah.
she went there and she started using these people. And then the worst thing that she did, and this was the worst thing that she did, is that she was falsifying mortgage assistance applications, letters of explanations, third party authorizations for the sellers.
Yeah. See, what you cross a line when you go from I'm doing everything I can to help these individuals out, and then you are just committing fraud. You're doing something you shouldn't do. And again, this is all allegedly, but what we teach and always have taught is that our responsibility as a CDPE stops when it starts to become legal, when it starts to become something that an attorney. That's why, for example, we said you never ever write a hardship letter for someone. You don't even translate a hardship letter for someone, because in essence, you are practicing law. With so many people out there looking for deals, why does anybody need to falsify an offer? When if you just price it so ridiculously low that anybody in your investor pool would be happy to put a legitimate offer in, just for the sake of, who knows, maybe the bank will say yes, or the bank will counter something that will go ahead and continue the negotiation. So I think that based on what I've listened to or read, I should say, that if these things are true, not only it's sad on so many levels, because how much did this individual potentially even make from these transactions that would even remotely tempt someone to do something that now
To take shortcuts,
yeah,
basically. And let me tell you that I get a lot of resistance from my agents on this. And now it's the golden rule. You want to work with me? This is how we do it. You send me all the bank forms, every single one of them. I don't care if the bank takes electronic signature. I want them wet signature. And your
okay,
client and there have been many a times where I've told the client, look, I have enough information that I can fill a mortgage assistance application for you. No, you fill it out. You need my help? Call me. We'll schedule an appointment. I'll walk you through it. And it may take me a little bit longer because half the time they send the form incorrectly. And many a times when they sent the form incorrectly, I go, why did they put that? This is not applicable. It should be this. And I would just fix it to get the deal out. Not anymore,
yeah,
sir.
yeah.
It's wrong. You got to fix it. This is how you
So
do it. And if it involves the agent, and I've done this already twice, where I've had the agent, like we're doing right now,
right,
call me on FaceTime with their clients and the applications and have them sit there and help the people, because some of them don't really know.
right.
Fill out the application. This is what I need. This is where it goes. It's more time for me, but I'd rather do it that way. I want
Yeah.
and the letters of explanation, the hardship letters, they need to be wet signed. I don't care if the bank accepts electronic, and they also need to have a date.
Well, here's what I would recommend. You're probably doing this, but I would record those meetings. Those times that you are helping these folks out, do it via Zoom and record it so that you have a history, so no one can come up and say, well, Ofelia told me this. Ofelia says, no, you know what? I have it recorded. But you mentioned something about wet signature versus electronic. We're all doing so much electronically now. Like within my own firm, we do everything to dot loop, and we can have the folks sign everything through dot loop electronically. Are you saying that what they should be doing is getting wet signatures on these
Yes, yes,
and
yes,
then uploading it
yes.
into their systems?
Because I've noticed, and I've noticed that there's a way that you can trigger. Like you can send something to an email for that person and sign on behalf for that person, and that person didn't even know that they signed that document. I don't think that e-sign or whatever that calls. I don't think they're fraud proof. I don't care. I'm not. I've seen it done. I've seen it done where they they say, well, and it's not like they're doing anything illegal. Like they'll say, that person send it to my email and I'll sign on her behalf. And it isn't even the homeowner that's signing, but it's like a relative, the husband, the son, the daughter, whatever, and they sign a document on behalf of
Yeah.
the homeowner, and but that's still not valid, and I don't want it. I want wet. You want to work with me? You got to wet.
Okay, well, this is a good time for me to go ahead and say, you know what? I totally respect when someone says, this is how I work. You lay out the foundations, the parameters by which you work. And you know what? We as individual real estate professionals, we can either accept it or not accept it or go our separate ways. But I do respect the fact that you are holding your ground in that area. And the wet signature approach may be the best way for all of us in our industry to protect ourselves from contracts to forms. Now I want to take a couple of quick, answer a couple of quick questions that have already
I know I
popped
see a
up.
lot of them popping up and I haven't answered any.
No, it's okay, dear. We're gonna do this together. So one thing is she geographically limited to Florida? Absolutely not. Now, you may have thrown a wrinkle in it because if they're in a different state and all that, getting you those wet signatures and all that, I guess no, really, it's really not so
No,
much. They just get the wet signature, then they upload it and send it to you, but you see
exactly.
that it was a signature. All right, problem solved. Okay, next question. What coupon code do I use for the 199? There isn't a 199. I mentioned the 149, which is a special price for the Zoom course. And there is a link and coupon code for that. And Jeanette can share that. And again, we verify that you are, in fact, an active or current CDPE. I
So
think
Tony,
they ask you how much you make. They want to know how much you get paid and how do you get paid.
yeah, Tony, this
Yes.
is Mary Ann. I'm the one I asked about the coupon code. So when you go to your link, it only allows you to purchase the course for $4.99. It doesn't.
Right. There is a coupon code that Jeanette will provide you that will bring the price down to 149.
Okay. Oh, God, even better.
But wait a minute, time out. Wait a minute. If you want to pay me 199, Marianne, who am I to stand in your way?
All right.
So
Thank you.
yeah, but Jeanette, there is a coupon code. She's absolutely right. You can look it up. Yeah, so just look it up. My memory doesn't serve, but it's there.
It's where on the
Yeah,
website
Jeanette
somewhere?
will look it up. I think Jeanette's scrambling for it now. If not,
Okay.
we'll find it. Before the end of the call, we are going to go ahead and do that. I promise you. Okay,
So are all CDPs, are this called for all CDPs or anybody, everybody?
well, here's the thing. We intend this to be for CDPEs. Now, sometimes someone's still on our mailing list that didn't renew and they get a
Mhm.
hold of the information or they find out through some other means and everything else. And that's why, we go ahead and say, look, we're not going to kick anybody off the call, but to extend a special offer to someone, we're going to verify that they are in active status with us. Make sense?
Hello.
Yes, yes, it does.
Okay. All right.
Hello. I feel like a teacher. Hello.
Let's talk money, Ofelia. So they want to know if you do this out of the goodness of your heart, if you do this pro bono, if you do this as a service to mankind, or are you just going to be completely capitalistic and insist on a fee? Which one is it?
I'm very capitalistic. And I'm going to and I'm going to insist on a fee. The minimum I charge, and notice I say the word minimum, is $2,500.
Okay. Now
Now, mind you, as a short, mind you, on the HUD with the closing statement, the disclosure, it cannot appear as a short sale negotiation fee to an individual, whether it's on the buyer side or the seller side. Most bank, they won't pay it on the seller side as an allowable fee. But if sometimes I've seen it where they want to put it on the buyer side and they have to take it away too, because they're not allowed, I'm not allowed to collect the fee as a short sale negotiator.
Okay, so let's back up a second because that may have confused a couple of people. So what I always teach is they need to be working with independent short sale negotiator friendly title company or attorney that's going to wrap your fee as part of their settlement fee. And then the fee.
I see Janet Travieso in here. Is Janet Travieso?
Yes, that's my sister and everything else. I don't think Zoom by itself is the thing. Are you sure there's no number behind that? Okay, I just make sure that it's not just Zoom by itself to get the 149 and that there's no numbers behind that. You need to go ahead and go into Kartra and pull that up. But let's go ahead and keep talking about how your fees are handled.
Janet Travieso, she's the title agent, right?
No. She works for Extreme and she works for CDP.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what I basically do is I built in my fee as a settlement fee on the seller side and see if the bank will pay it. Generally speaking, banks are paying 1% of the sales price. So I'll give you an example, just a quick example of one of my miracles. I closed a short sale that was $1,350,000 2 weeks ago. I went in there and put 1%. Guess what? I met the required net and the bank paid $13,550 settlement fee to the closing agent. In that instance, I was kind because I was actually referred the deal to the closing agent because I wanted to work with that specific closing agent because it was a very, very difficult transaction. I said, I'll split it with you.
Okay.
But there are times where the settlement fee is only 2,500. There are times when it's only 1,500. There are sales prices that are low and it doesn't, 1% is not enough to cover my fee. So then I always ask my closing agent, what is your settlement fee for buyer and seller on a short sale? Blah, blah. Okay, perfect. So whatever their fee is, if I can get some of it from the seller side, I'll collect it. And then the balance goes to, I collect from the buyer side. I never want to gyp the title company. I always want to make sure that the title company receives their minimum, what they need. There are times I get a little bit more because I'm not going to haggle you for $100, $50, $200, $300, you know what I'm saying? $500. And I don't mind that. But that's basically how I work it. I either build
Okay.
it into the seller side or the buyer side or both.
All right, so let's go ahead and elaborate on that. So your fee is 2,500, and in a second we're going to talk about everything you do, which I'm still am a little surprised you're only charging 2,500 given everything that you do. But yes, the first goal is to try to collect the entire amount from the seller side.
Correct.
Okay, and you work closely with the closing agent to go ahead and try to make that so. Now, here's the thing. And this is something that you and I discussed when I first acquired the CDP, and I asked you, what is your model? How do you get paid? Because there's different models out there from different negotiators. We'll talk about that in a second. And you mentioned, well, listen, I try to get it from the seller, but if I can't, I get it from the buyer. And I immediately jumped in and said, does the buyer notice? And you were kind of like, well, I hope so. And I said, but wait a minute, I as an agent would want to make sure that there is something signed that from the buyers, that they are aware that the fee or a portion of the fee may come from them. And we created something like this. Of course, I'm not an
And I still
attorney.
use it. And I
Yeah.
still use it.
Yeah, so that's why you do me favors, because of that favor. Plus, you're a nice
I
guy.
have that form. I
Listen.
use it all the time.
Well, you see, the thing is, what's crazy is that it's such a simple agreement, right? And here's what I did.
It's an acknowledgement, really.
Yeah, and what I did is I said, look, I'm not an attorney. I'm just going to put some words on paper, and it's one of the few forms that I share to CDPs in Word, and it doesn't even have our logo on it because it wasn't intended to be a CDPE form. It was intended for you to have a draft to go to your broker or to go to your legal counsel and say, how does this sound? Does this make sense? What changes would you make? But you absolutely should get the buyer to agree. And what I did is I expanded on it, because as we started working together and I started doing more of these, we found situations that the buyer needed to go ahead and pay some association dues in order to close, and that the buyer needed to pick up some of the seller related costs to close. So I amended that acknowledgement to include those items as well. So be sure. Now, I did tell Ofelia this from the very beginning. Ofelia, when you're doing this, it was a total seller's market, and sellers and buyers didn't care. They'll sign anything to do it. I always advise you, your model could come back to bite you if the market shifts and it becomes a significantly more buyer's market with more short sales available. And someone could say, you know what, if I put an offer on this short sale, I'm not responsible for any fees whatsoever. But if I put an offer on this short sale, I may be responsible. Have you run into any of that yet?
No, I have not. And the reason why is because I work with agents that know me and they know. And if they come in with a buyer, if a buyer comes in and they don't want to work with me or her title company or his title company, she won't take the deal or he won't take the deal. They have to work with me or and their preferred closing agent. I have 4 agents that are actively do short sales, and they will not, no, this is.
Well, listen,
you-
that
You want the
plays against,
property? You want the property? It's a
yeah.
buyer's market all you want. I have 5 buyers lined up that want the property too. These are the terms and conditions.
And I get that, and it's still the case. But there may come a time, when there's so much inventory out there that we may need, or you all may need to be more flexible in that. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. One of the questions that was asked here is, are you currently seeing banks require promissory notes from sellers to approve the closing on a short sale? I don't
Okay,
think,
no, I have not. But just recently, just today, just yesterday, I got a short sale approved, and it was a bank, but it wasn't like a Chase or a Bank of America or an SPS. It's a small bank. It's one of the few that are still around. Loan committee, the whole 9 yards. I never thought I would get the deal done. And they did ask me to have the buyer, the homeowner, sign a prom note.
okay, so for
But that's
years,
very rare.
yes, very
I
rare.
haven't seen that in, I haven't seen that in maybe 7 years.
Right, but from back, you know why I still teach and mention promissory notes in the CDPE class? Because you may get to a point where there's an impasse. You know, the bank is requiring some kind of a contribution from the seller. Seller doesn't have it or refuses to pay it, and you reach the point where 5,000, 6,000, 10,000 is the difference between closing or not. A strategy that was used very successfully during the great financial crisis was seller signs a promissory note for that amount. Promissory notes are not secured. They don't even show up on your credit report. Very low interest with very favorable terms. Now, again, before any seller signs this, you as an agent cannot go to someone and say, I need you to sign this, or interpret that. I mean, they should have an attorney review the terms of that promissory note. You got to be careful in not crossing that line. But I've always said, if it were me in your situation, I would not hesitate, based on what I've read, in signing this, because here's the alternative. The deal falls apart, it goes into foreclosure, and I got to live with the consequences of foreclosure for 7 years. But it's up to the individual, and it's up to the individual to seek legal counsel if needed. Okay.
Yeah, I referred him to a bankruptcy attorney.
That's what I'm going to do it. Absolutely.
No, I referred him to a bankruptcy attorney, and the closing agent in the transaction is a real estate attorney, and he still didn't feel comfortable reviewing some of the questions that the homeowner had. And he said, look, I think he needs to talk to a bankruptcy attorney. And sure enough, that's how I go. Here's the number, here's the name, call and find out, ask all your questions.
Very good. Now, can you go ahead and give them the laundry list of all the things that you do for your fee? And let me, by the way, say her fee is not up front. This is not a retainer. Okay.
Unfortunately.
Well, listen, maybe that'll change someday. We can only hope. But she works like we do.
We do, yeah.
Yeah, we get paid when it closes. That's how Ofelia gets paid. But go ahead and break down what you include as part of your fee.
First of all, I include my experience, my knowledge, my wisdom, and the fact that I have established many relationships with many of the servicers where they know me by name. A couple of them, when they see a deal of mine come in, they fight for it, because they know that it's not that they know that I know what I'm doing, is that they know the deal is going to close. It has a high probability of closing. And and a lot of people don't know these, but there's certain bank servicers that these negotiators that work on the back end, they get bonuses for closing short sales and taking deals out of the books that were detrimental to the servicer or to their, because remember, a lot of these people are servicers, and in reality, they're servicing for an investor, for someone, and they do pay bonuses to them. So a lot of them want to get the deal closed because it means extra money in their pocket. But basically, I collect all the documentation from listing to contract to all financial and applications. And the key thing that I think is another reason for my success is I review it. If you
Mhm.
send me a bank statement and I see $1,000, $3,000, $4,000 deposits, and I see that you work, eh, or you work and you have a salary. Okay, where's all this money coming from? That's number one. Number two, if you're telling me that you're self-employed and you don't make income and I see deposits in your bank account, really? How did they get there? Who did you, and I want it explained. Or if I see that you work and you say you're self-employed, and I need to ask you for a profit and loss, and you obviously do generate income, you need to go back to these bank statements and make sure that that profit and loss that is being given to you coincides with the deposits on those bank statements. And you generally have to go back 6 months because you want to make sure the information that you're receiving is accurate. Okay, tax returns, bank statements, contracts, and then basically once I have a complete package that I have everything that I need after I reviewed it, then I go ahead and I prepare the package and I either email, fax. Yes, people, some of them still use fax, email or fax to the to the servicer. I usually wait 48 hours to 5 days. It depends on who the servicer is, and I reach out and I confirm, did you get my package? Has it been assigned? Oh, then they give me whatever the response is. Based on their response, then I know when I have to follow up again and when I have to call back. And somebody mentioned their Equator. I do not like Equator, and I'll tell you why. Because Equator, you lose. I still have to use Equator with three of my favorite servicers. They're my favorite servicers. And I'm being sarcastic because you lose the personal contact. You can't pick up the phone and speak to someone and say your case and ask them key questions and then the people that run Equator up until it gets to the negotiator, they're not even triggered to look at your email for 5 days. So basically, you send something in and they have up to 5 days to respond to your message and let you know, oh no, that T wasn't crossed correctly. We want this and we want that. The only three servicers that use Equator is the Coopers, Mr. Cooper, Rushmore, and Mr. Cooper, which are basically the same entity, and my most favorite, which is Bank of America.
God bless them. Okay, so when I teach the CDPE and I mentioned that different negotiators are going to charge different fees and get paid different ways, I say, look, this one particular one, if I mention your name, I say, well, look, here's what Ofelia does for her fee. She'll negotiate the first. She'll negotiate a second. I've seen you remove
Negotiate
third and fourth.
association.
Yeah, you negotiate with the association. But what happens is you stop at not negotiating with the IRS. You don't do the IRS aspect of it. Okay. So what happens is now I've met negotiators that say, oh no, we handle all that. And again, this is all part of you interviewing with different negotiators. And sometimes there may be a transaction that's best suited to be negotiated by somebody else. But when you look at her negotiating a first, a second, an association usually means talking to their attorney as well and everything else. You can't put a price on everything she's doing and the countless hours. And the other thing I mentioned too is you mentioned that your relationships that you have, the leverage that you have. Imagine somebody right now that was an amazing negotiator, CDPE 14, 15 years ago, starting up brand new right now. Who do you know? You don't know anybody.
No, and the
Now,
banks are changing and the services are changing all the time. Look, talking about an association, that the gentleman, my poor gentleman that has to sign the prom note, he owed the association $28,900.
okay, so how what were you able to do for him?
4,000.
Oh,
But it helped me because I happen to know the what is it called? I want to call him a spam, but it's not the cam. I knew the cam. I want to call him Pam, but it's not Pam. Lila. I knew the cam, and I basically I read him the riot act. I said, look, here's where we are. I have to close by February 14th. If you don't accept my deal, which is what the bank is willing to pay, guess what? they're gonna foreclose, and you're gonna get $2,000. I can get the bank will pay for, and I can get the buyer to pay January and February. And I already knew that I could do that because the buyer told me that he was willing to increase his offer by $5,000 to get the deal. So like, okay, good. I'm gonna ask you, I'm not gonna ask you for five, I'm gonna ask you for three. And I'm gonna ask you to pay January and February to make the deal more attractive for the association. Sure enough, the association said, okay, we'll take it. Mind
Okay,
you,
so
there's a motion of summary judgment already scheduled. Foreclosure is gonna happen. If this deal didn't happen, foreclosure was already imminent. It was not, it was, foreclosure would happen the first or second week of March.
but let me ask you a question. You said you got the buyer to raise the offer price. But in those scenarios, isn't that just extra money for the bank because they're
No.
gonna say, okay, thank you for the extra $3,000.
Okay, the bank countered the buyer. The bank wanted the buyer to come in with $30,000 more
Oh,
than his offer.
contribution. Okay,
No, 30,000. They wanted him to increase his offer by 30,000.
okay,
I told my agent, no, tell him to do 20. So the seller, the buyer increases offer to by $20,000. And here I am waiting and waiting and waiting and mind you, I'm not even working directly with the bank. I'm working with bank's attorneys. And we're waiting and waiting. And finally I got her to agree. I got my seller to agree to a prom note. And meanwhile, the buyer's in waiting and waiting. Cash buyer, you know how they are, they get angsty. So he says yesterday, he calls the agent, he goes, tell your negotiator that I'm willing to pay $25,000 more. And I said, no, tell him no. Let's wait to see how all this pans out. Sure enough, she came back and she said it was approved with the additional 20. The promissory note gave the seller actually a really good rate in terms to pay back. And then here we had the association that had been ball busting me since December, picked up the phone, blah, 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 blah. And I said to them, okay, look, this is the deal. I can add January and February because I knew the buyer was willing to pay 325, was willing to pay 25 more. So
right.
I went back to the agent and I go, you tell him that no, not 25 more, not $5,000 more, that you need him to cover January and February. And the guy goes, yeah, I'll do it. Thank you.
Okay, so that was just all taken care of closing. It's a contribution, additional contribution from the buyer?
No, the buyer signed an addendum that he, extending the closing date until the 14th of February, and that he was paying January and February past due fees, and the amount was specifically spelled out as to what he's paying.
Gotcha. Now, Frederick, who is an amazing short sale practitioner and a good friend of ours up in the New York area, says Carrington Mortgage are requiring me to use the, I guess, Equator platform for a current short sale. So if you have to use the platform, you do it, you just don't like it. Is that what I get from you, Ofelia?
Yeah, it's not that I don't like it. The Equator platform is task oriented. You
Okay,
cannot submit an entire short sale package from the beginning like I do with my other servicers. You have to initiate it. They have to say, oh yeah, upload the third party. Then they have to review the third party, make sure that's correct. Then after that, they make you fill out 4 or 5 more tasks, like the property information, the tax, the income, blah, blah, blah. And then during that time frame, they'll order an appraisal or a BPO. Once the BPO has been ordered and received, then they trigger do you have an offer agent? So 4 weeks have passed and you have not even submitted an offer. And unlike a regular servicer that I can pick up the phone and say, hey, have you done the BPO? Why hasn't the BPO been done? I call my agent. Usually I put myself as the contact for them to call me to do the BPO or the appraisal. And I know it's been 3 weeks and no one's called me. Whereas I can pick up the phone and call a regular servicer. I have to depend on the person in Equator, the processor that I'm working with, who is in either the Philippines or India, to answer my email, answer my Equator message, and let me know whether or not the BPO has been requested.
okay.
And
But
why it's taking so long, whereas I can pick up the phone and say, hey, No one's called. No one's called anybody.
Right.
I need you to follow up with your third-party agent to see what's going on.
Okay, so but if they require Equator, there's no workaround
Oh,
to it.
there's no way around it. And Carrington does use Equator, but I'll be honest with you, I haven't had a Carrington short sale in a while.
Okay,
Carrington, and the beauty with Carrington, I don't know if this is still correct or accurate. They service FHA loans. The majority of the loans they service are FHA and VA loans, which are much better to negotiate in a short sale through Equator than a
right.
conventional or a portfolio loan.
Okay, we have a VA question, but I want to answer Nancy's question first. There is no rule of thumb currently as to how much a bank will accept, except for what I teach. And again, 14 years ago, we had a completely different market. We had a glut of inventory. It was a buyer's market and deals were available. Now banks want market price. This is what I teach. This is what I stand by. In other words,
I agree.
right. If the property can be sold for 350, expect the buyer to pay 350. Expect the
350,
bank to
exactly.
want 350.
And I expect my agents to be qualified to say, to check the property, see it, compare it to other homes in the area, and list it for the amount they really feel the property is worth.
Exactly.
Not
Exactly.
lower to get a deal. When you list a property lower to get a deal, I know you're working with an investor. And they're
Yeah.
not bad. I work with a lot of investors, don't get
Yeah.
me wrong. But you're the eyes and how the bank views agents, they're the eyes and ears. They're the qualified professionals that are going to tell them what they feel the house is worth. And a lot of these BPO agents, now BPO agents are just agents, the realtors, brokers, but especially appraisers, they look at that listing and say, well, if this agent who is an expert realist, who's expert in the field, feels the property is worth 350, then that's where I'm going to start at and work my
Yeah.
way down.
What I teach is that you start by looking at the clock. How much time do you have?
Exactly.
If you have a lot of time left, then definitely start at market price. Because if nothing else, even if repairs are needed, and they usually are, market price, and you put it up there for market price for 2 or 3 weeks, you get nothing. You know what you did? You now have a history to show the bank that you attempted to get market price for them.
Exactly.
And then you start reducing in a logical way. You don't take massive jumps, because if you have time.
Oh my God, you're like preaching to the choir. Exactly.
I know, this is like, if you're $20,000 over than you should be, and you have nothing but time, then do $5,000 reduction.
Increments on a Friday afternoon.
Yeah.
When the weekend traffic is about to hit you.
Yeah, absolutely. This is what, and then of course, expect that a legitimate offer is going to be market less repairs. And banks are aware, listen, if a new roof is needed, they're going to inherit that property needing a new roof. But those are some of the strategies that we agree upon. Somebody wrote here, Nancy, are there any tips we need to know when handling a VA short sale? The seller is not active military, but they're a veteran. It's a veteran.
Right.
It's a
They use their
VA loan.
certificate. They use their eligibility to purchase the property. And the way VA works, I just did a VA one. I just got it approved. VA short sales can be either super easy or super hard, because the VA always protects the veteran.
Mhm.
They protect the veteran, but usually, I want to say it's 84.2%. They have to net 84.2, or is it 84.5 of the appraised value? That is the amount that the bank needs to receive to meet the VA criteria. Because remember, VA loans are guaranteed, which means the VA paid whatever the eligibility is that they paid on their certificate. They pay to guarantee that, and they have to pay the bank in a short sale or a foreclosure. They have to pay the bank that amount, the
So
amount they guaranteed.
Yeah, so they're going to be very, very cautious, and they want to make sure that they're getting. So, is there a formula they use, kind of like a formula, like
Yeah, they go.
FHA?
I want to say it's 84.5, 84.2. The one that I just did, they automatically approved it for me. My
Because
offer
was it fair? Was it market price?
it was actually an investor that bought the property. But here
Okay.
again, and here's something that I wanted to say, which before I lose my trend of thought, because remember, I'm getting old, okay? Um,
Yeah.
um, this is so important in a short sale. And I think I don't demand it, but I recommend it so highly that when you have a short sale transaction, you know, the short sale addendum says the effective date of the contract is the date the short sale was approved. Number one, that's great. I want a deposit, don't you? You want to make sure that you have a buyer that's really interested in the property and can go the 2, 3, 4 months possibly that's going to take to do the
Mhm.
deal. And number two, and most important to me, is that they do an inspection report with a list and cost of repairs by a licensed person, by a licensed inspector. And this is
Contractor.
something that they should be doing. If it were a regular contract, they would be doing it. And this is so helpful when that
Yep.
appraiser calls or that BPO agent calls. I I immediately I call my agent and I said, "Where's my inspection report?" And I personally asked the BPO agent or the appraiser, "Let me have your email. I'm going to make your life easier. The buyer did an inspection report. Here you go."
Well, let me jump in. So in Florida, I can't speak for other states. There is an addendum that is included with a purchase agreement for a short sale that gives two options as to when the timeline begins. And I am a strong, strong proponent that the timeline should never begin with short sale approval.
Oh, I agree. I
Yeah,
agree.
the timeline should begin with the effect. In other words, when it's an effective date, that's when your timeline begins. That means, because look at it this way, folks, if it's the opposite, they don't even have to inspect the property. They don't even have to put the earnest money deposit down. How can you have a serious buyer if they don't have earnest money? And most of these banks want earnest money as part of the
Yeah.
deal. So I always say, make sure that you check the box that says that the clock starts ticking with the effective date.
And
Okay,
even if there isn't a box to check,
write it
scratch
in.
it off and
Yeah,
have it initialed. It's so important. It's so relative. And especially if you're working with a prospective buyer that's an investor, or you
yeah.
see that the house needs a lot of work. I mean, you're not an inspector, but you can see, oh God, it needs a new roof. Oh my God. You need that inspection report. That inspection report is key. On my reverse mortgages, it's a requirement because I know they're sending an FHA appraiser out. And I want that inspection report.
Yes, and go ahead and speak to. There's a question here. Shaniqua has. I need you to go ahead and take a look at it because it's a heavy duty question. And do you see it there in front of you?
I don't see it.
Okay, you have to scroll up a little bit there. It says, "This is my first short sale. He requested short sale assistance. July 2024 was denied by HUD. Carrington Mortgage sent out an appraiser. An appraiser report was sent to HUD to request a short sale for the FHA mortgage. And it said that after they reviewed the appraisal, they deemed the property not marketable condition. What the heck does that mean?"
Okay, there's a lot behind that question. Okay, number one, and this is something that has happened to me also. It depends on the delinquency period. To be eligible for a PSF or a short sale with HUD, it depends on the delinquency period. If you have a homeowner that's past that frame, and it's usually, it's like 120, 140, 150 payments past due, they're not eligible for a short sale at all, period, point blank. Now, on a FHA, the value is not what the value is the value that's been given by the FHA appraiser. And the first 30 days, the bank has to net 88% of that amount. Then minus all their allowable closing costs. But if they're telling her, if they're telling her that he's not eligible, it could be because it has nothing to do with the appraisal. It has to do with the fact that he's exceeded the number of months that HUD will allow to. I can't read. What did she say there? The last
Yeah,
mortgage
but I don't,
payment.
but here's the thing, they're saying that marketable condition, let's say there's issues with the property, most short sales have some issues with it. That should impact the ability for someone to
No, that
finance
should
it.
not. No.
Well, for financing purposes.
Yeah,
But
but
not
not for a
for
short
short sale
sale.
approval. So I think that this may be one that Ofelia needs to get involved in.
And for the record, even though you're working with Equator, with Carrington, there are numbers that you can call and actually speak to someone in a short sale department. And you would want clarification on that.
Okay. Okay, all right. So, wow. Okay, so I want to go back to something that I wanted to mention. I also recommend that if it's not a box for it, that you write it in, that the buyers are required to submit their association applications within 10 days of the effective date. One of the issues that you find, and this is why you have to have buyers that are coached properly. Imagine a scenario where association approval is required, but no application was ever submitted. Ofelia gets the approval, and all of a sudden they give her 27 days to close. And the application hasn't even been submitted yet, and the association has 30 days to approve or deny. You're in trouble now. So make sure that your buyer is getting that out of the way. A motivated, properly coached buyer should only be waiting on the appraisal. And that is something that absolutely can wait until you have short sale approval. The inspection, you never, ever, ever, as the listing agent in the short sale, let it slide that the inspection is not done prior to submitting the package. That's why you put inspections have to be done within 3 to 5 days of the effective date. Why? Because if there's major issues with the property, the buyer can back out. But you know what's even better? When there's issues with the property and you get a repairs estimate from an actual general contractor, Ofelia can go ahead and at the right moment submit that for consideration based on the price that they're offering. So it is valuable ammunition for her to have that inspection report
Upfront,
upfront.
prior to
Absolutely.
prior to the bank going out, sending out their BPO agent or their appraiser.
Yeah, and now some buyers, and by the way, if you're a CDPE, there's a form for this already that basically you use and say, okay, buyer, before you submit an offer, here's everything that you need to consider. Okay. I believe it's form F. I may be wrong because I'm getting older. Okay. But it's definitely there. And look, what you're doing is you're disclosing to a buyer's agent that may never have done a short sale in their life. This is how I work. I require earnest money. I require this. I require this. You have to use that form if you're not using it now. And that gives you more control over the transaction. A non-qualified buyer shouldn't even be making an offer on that property. Okay. Now, any other questions before we let her go? Because she's got to go.
I'm looking at my emails and they're getting heavy.
I know. We're going to keep you no more than 5 more minutes, I promise. So any other questions before we let Ofelia go? Okay. All right. I think,
Yes.
okay. Shaniko, go ahead real quick.
Is there any way I can book a call with you, or do I just call you or email you?
Go ahead and email me and I'll be more than happy to look at the information for you and go over everything with you. You're one of Tony's people and I gladly try to help you. I do this all the time. I believe in paying forward. I believe that you always, when you do someone a favor, it comes back to you 2 times
Agreed.
forward.
Agreed. I almost forgot. And if I had let this conversation end without mentioning it, I would never have forgiven myself. But you know now that the whole compensation issue is different now. We as agents are not allowed to advertise or mention in the MLS what kind of compensation is being offered to the buyer side. So what we are securing is we're getting compensation agreements from sellers that are willing to go ahead and pay. Now, in a short sale scenario, are the banks signing those compensation agreements, or have
Yeah.
they even come up?
They haven't come up, and I am expecting them to come up anytime, you know, but I seriously am thinking, I wonder when the banks are gonna pick up that they don't have to pay all this money.
But let me ask you this, a
But in a short
knowledgeable,
sale, the seller pays for the compensation. FHA,
I
six
get it, but
percent.
I get it, but here's the difference. Okay, back in the day, we could put in the MLS, you're getting 2.5 sandwiches, you're getting 3 sandwiches.
Yeah, you
right?
don't, yeah,
That's gone. So how is a buyer agent in a short sale being protected if there is no compensation agreement being signed? Are they just writing it into the contract itself?
yeah, no, there is, the short sale that I did per 1.3 mil, there was a compensation agreement, and it specifically said that the seller was responsible for the full commission. And
And I
because
guess
it was a
when,
short sale,
yeah,
we knew the bank was gonna pay at least 5%.
okay. So I guess in that, I'll answer my own question. In those scenarios, as a buyer's agent, I would be submitting a compensation agreement,
Mm-hmm,
which here's the way I look at it. And maybe, and I could be wrong, and I'm going to check this out. There's still a seller in the agreement.
correct.
Okay. So
They
why
don't own
can't
it.
the seller,
The
why
bank
can't the
doesn't own the
seller
house
sign the compensation agreement knowing full well that the seller costs are going to be picked up by the bank?
by the bank.
So that may be one way of handling it. That's a question I guess should be run by a legal question, because
Let
I
me
don't think.
ask you something, Tony.
Uh-huh.
Let me ask you something. With this new
Mm.
criteria, right? You have the seller in a short sale sign that they're paying 6% commission, because that's the
Well,
matter.
well, here's the thing. We get in trouble when we mention percentages. And
So
here's
you,
how, okay, let me go through my disclaimer real quick and then we'll do it. If I were teaching at a board of realtors right now and I mentioned a percentage, they would have heart attacks throughout the entire room right there. What I have always taught is what it's true. Commissions are negotiable, but short sales are very specific. The banks have already disclosed what they're willing to pay. If you go on Fannie Mae's site and Freddie Mac's site and FHA's site, they tell you 6%. They tell you this. So those are the only times I feel comfortable making a number. So if I were taking a listing myself today, I would be listing it in the listing agreement for 6%. Because if I listed it for 7%, they can cut me to the bone without any reservations at all. So I, as a listing agent, I'm speaking for myself, and how I would teach a group in front of me is I would put 6%. Now, I would also put the disclaimer everywhere that the bank may cut that. It's at their discretion to cut that.
that
And
was my next question.
yeah, and should they cut it, both sides agree to split the amount equally. So let me go back this way. I take a listing, it's a short sale. I get the seller, who is the current seller, not the bank, to sign the listing agreement for 6%. I put the listing in the MLS. I'm not allowed to mention compensation in the MLS. I can put it every place else but the MLS. I disclose either on my site or on some other form that seller is willing, that buyer's agent can receive 3%, let's say, because I've never been a fan of cutting the buyer's agent down. I'm not, and I know some short sale practitioners do that. I'm not a fan of that. If I can get the bank to pay 6 hypothetically, and I'm getting 3 and they're getting 3, man, come on, more power to us. But I'm going to back it up with the same language that we've always used, that this is subject to approval, subject to third-party approval of price, terms, and compensation amount. Any reductions in the compensation amount will be shared equally by seller.
Both agents,
Both
buyer's
agents.
agent is the seller's agent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, because that was my next question. How are you
Yeah.
handling that? Because
Mm-hmm.
the majority of the time they do pay 6%, but there are
Yeah, we
times that
do.
even that they'll cut the commission, that they'll cut it to 5 because that's who their investor, that's the maximum their investor.
Or
And Rushmore and Mr. Cooper are both notorious for doing that.
yeah, and you know, there's another or, and that is if the agent is acting in both sides. If they listed their name on both sides, well, that was a mistake. You know, you should be working with another agent that acts as the buyer's agent in that, because that is a red flag for the lenders to cut you to the bone.
To cut you to the bone and to cut your commission to 4% or even 3%.
Yeah. Folks, let me tell you something. If you had to put a price on this training, give me a number. Put a number in the chat right now, because nobody else does.
Lunch.
Yeah.
Lunch.
$2.99. Come on, Adrian, you can do better than that. Okay, because this is just additional training. This is not part of the CDPE course. This is how we take care of our members. So I hope that you guys
And
understand.
I'm very
that we're there
natural
for you.
and down to earth, as you can see. I know Tony's very prim and proper. I am just me. I am simply me.
Well, listen,
Unapologetically.
wait. The first thing is, I am nowhere near prim and proper. I just have learned to say certain words at certain times. But anybody that knows me knows that I'm anything but. But you know what? In this legal world that we live in, you gotta say things a certain way. And you know what? Let's end on this note. I never ever want to see one of our CDP members get in trouble. That's the thing. And if I can go above and beyond, provide any hints and tips and techniques to hopefully prevent that from happening, then that's a good day. So, Ofelia, from the CDPE, from me personally, from our staff, everybody else, I pray nothing but blessings upon you.
Thank you.
You are
God
a
bless you.
wonderful person. Thank you for what you do. And thank you for your time today. All right, everyone. She's got to get back to work. I got to go take a senior nap. But the rest of you go out there and make some money.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for
Take
listening.
care, everyone. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.